Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host Andy Nolch, and these are closed-door secret briefings about vital information about Scientology and the world, information that you need to know. Today's briefing has plenty of information about the world that you need to know. This is the deepest briefing I've ever done. It's some really hardcore truths about the world. Really deep stuff is going to be covered in this briefing. This is the most essential thing you could ever listen to. I'm going to be talking about OT8. I'm going to be reading out the introduction document to OT8 because it is just drops bombs of data, and once I read it, I'll read it out, then I'll read it again and stop and explain it. Then when you look at the world and everything that's going on, you'll be able to make much more sense of it, and you'll be able to understand what L. Ron Hubbard was really on about, what he really thought about the world, and what is going on. It's called the OT8 student briefing that I'm going to read out. This document is absolutely just awesome. And when I first came across it, although I knew a lot and I'd studied a lot, it was probably around 2016 or 17, I still didn't believe, I didn't even know if L. Ron Hubbard actually even wrote it, because I was like, whoa, but something in it made sense to me from what I'd already studied, and I thought, no, I've got to try and understand this document, keep on researching, and I think I'll get to the bottom of it. Keep on looking up words, because it's written that typical L. Ron Hubbard way where you just, like, what the hell is he trying to say? And it's just such deep data. And this student briefing is actually his dying message to Scientologists, because it was written in 1980. He died in 1986, but around about 1980, he knew he wasn't far from dying. And it's almost like his last message to Scientologists, because there's no L. Ron Hubbard dying note or anything, is there? But this is the closest thing we have to that. And you can tell by the way it's written. Now, I'll give you a warning for people who are listening to this. If you're a Scientologist, you might have a problem with this because it's reading an OT8 document. Now, we're not going to be running any OT8 tech, and that's the only thing I think that might harm someone. Just talking about OT8, I don't think harms anyone. I think it's bullshit, the idea that just talking about a level can harm someone. But this isn't even talking about, this isn't even me saying the auditing commands and talking about the auditing commands or anything. This is just the introductory document where L. Ron Hubbard basically says, you know, this is what's going on, this is why we have to run this auditing for OT8, and it's an introduction to it. It's probably the first thing you study when you do OT8. So yeah, Scientologists who don't want to hear anything high up, this is as high as you can go, it's OT8. You might not want to listen to this. I think you should. I don't think it's going to harm you. I think it's the only thing it might do is it might put you off Scientology, and this almost puts people off Scientology because it's so what the hell. It's just, it says some really outrageous things. It says some really, I guess you could say, offensive things to Christians about Christianity, and that's the next thing I want to say is people who are Christians who are listening to this, you might get offended by this, and I think you should harden up and not get offended, and the same with the Scientologists as well. You should harden up and not get offended. I don't like this idea of people not liking data. That's what communists and lefties have a problem with. They hate that there's a male and a female. They just facts, biological facts piss them off. But facts about life, facts that welfare doesn't work and actually messes society, offends these people. I mean, I've spent some time in Mexico City where I don't think they have any welfare because poor people have to work, and the whole society is much more harmonious and it's much more capitalistic with people running businesses and trying to survive, and there isn't dole bludgers, there isn't people who are just leeching off welfare. It's much better. It's not a lefty society. And it's just better. So anyway, so lefties get offended by economic facts. Christians get offended by, they're going to get offended by what they're going to hear. Scientologists will get offended by what they're going to hear as well, because I'm going to be saying some deep stuff. So this is really cool. This is part 4 of my briefing on OT8. Because there's that much to talk about on OT8, and it's probably my second last briefing. I'm hoping that next briefing I can wrap up OT8, and then that's the last briefing I'll ever do on Scientology. So yeah, warning, you know, just, you might get offended by this, but I just hope you're not one of these people who get offended by facts. Just listen to the facts, think with them, and here we go. Okay, so this is the OT8 student briefing, Series 1, 5th of May 1980, confidential, limited distribution to OT8 course students, OT8 auditors, OT8 CSs, you know the rest. All right. By the time you read this, I will no longer be occupying the body and identity that you have known as Ron. That identity continues to live in the hearts and minds of many, as well as in the on-source tech and admin centers around the planet, and will inspire for years to come Scientologists and lovers of truth everywhere. What follows is a story that has been withheld for reasons which will soon be obvious, until such a time as there were enough OTs that something could be done about it. That time is now. Sorry, I'll just quickly mention something. I fact-checked whether or not this was written by L. Ron Hubbard, and it is L. Ron Hubbard. This is L. Ron Hubbard. Okay, I'm like 90% sure this is, well, I'm pretty much 100% sure, to be honest. But like, because you might be listening to this and going, well, this could just be some disinformation that some Scientology hater put on the internet to try and trash Scientology's reputation or something like that. No, I looked into it. This document actually was by L. Ron Hubbard. This is to me, and the reason why I believe that when I first heard this document was because some of the ideas were making sense, and the way it was written was so L. Ron Hubbard. I was like, either some genius who captures the way L. Ron Hubbard wrote this. Because you know how L. Ron Hubbard writes in that retarded way that, you know, you're just like, what? Like, he's just got this funky way of writing, and you're like, and you have to read it again, you're like, ugh. Right? This is written in that way. And so that made me go, no, this is too much sounding like L. Ron Hubbard. And I know it's such wild stuff. But anyway, so I fact-checked it, and this is Hubbard, okay? So you can, it's up to you. I mean, I wouldn't believe any of the things that I say because it's just so out there, but it's the truth. All I say is the truth. But 10 years ago, before I knew anything, if I was listening to myself, I would just be like, what the fuck's he saying? Like, I can't fact check any of that. I don't believe any of that. Right? But that's because I didn't know anything 10 years ago. Now I know tons and tons of stuff, and now I could listen to myself and go, yeah, that's just the truth. That's what went on. That's what's going on. That's what blah blah blah. You know, yeah, people are getting abducted by aliens. Yeah, that's actually what's going on. Yeah, okay, it's like 3% of the population or 0.3. Does it matter? It actually does occur. Yes, a craft goes above a house, booms, pulls people through the walls because they've got advanced, they know physics, they're advanced, they pull people through the walls. And by the way, we have this technology. Pulls people through the walls onto the craft, and then they shove stuff up their ass, and they analyze them, and sometimes they get DNA, sometimes they do sex experiments, right? It sounds totally whacked and out there. That to me is that's just facts about life. That's just like saying that there's a brick wall. All over the world there's brick walls. I'll just, well, yeah, it's just facts. So, but 10 years ago I'd just be like, what? I wouldn't be able to understand. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Right? But people don't look into this stuff. They're just busy, I don't know, what are they doing? Playing Mario Kart, walking their dog, picking up their dog's crap. They're doing boxing or something like that. They're not looking down these alleyways. So when I come along, look down the alleyways, and then report the data from the alleyway, where I report the data from the rabbit hole, it sounds completely crazy. But it's like, that's what's going on in the rabbit hole. It's crazy shit. All right? Anyway, so this, I don't know what to say. You shouldn't trust, you have to just do your own research. But I'm just saying, I'll help you. I'll give you a little clue. This document is freaking true. He actually wrote, I've thoroughly looked at it, okay? I've looked into it. It all makes sense, and you'll see when I explain it all in the briefing. So anyway, so in case you're wondering, This isn't disinformation. This is by Hubbard. So I'll continue with this briefing. Sorry, that's the only thing I'm going to say. I'm going to read it all out and then we'll go into it. What follows is a story that has been withheld for reasons which will soon be obvious. Until such time as there were enough OTs that something could be done about it. That time is now. It is not a nice or a pretty story, but I trust that having arrived on the OT8 course, you are ready to hear it. You have undoubtedly heard pieces of data over the years that hinted at the greater untold reality of my mission here on Earth. But the story was never written nor spoken in its entirety due to security problems that have unfortunately always plagued the organization. It is only now that I will feel it safe to release the information, although the time is rapidly approaching when I'll have no choice in the matter. The hour draws that near. I am not going to delve too deeply into specifics, as people have a tendency to bog themselves down in significance, which would only serve to delay the immediacy of the task at hand. Therefore, I will be brief. Some 80 odd million years ago, Earth time, it actually dates at 78,395,042, but dates are a bit superfluous with this material. Plans were drawn by a group outside the meshed universe for the eventual takeover of a good portion of this universe. Not a particularly large nor imaginative crew, their exterior perspective, however, gives them considerable advantage over the time-bound beings of the meshed universe. Borrowing from earlier operations such as Halotrobus, they conceived an ongoing implant, some portions of which have been fairly faithfully rendered in parts of the Bible. This implant, laid in by carefully controlled genetic mutation at incident 2 of OT3 and periodically reinforced by controlled historic events since then, makes it effectively impossible for beings on the more heavily affected planets such as Earth to become free. It causes progressive genetic evolution that gives the subject population greater and greater susceptibility to the telepathic impingement and direction of the controllers. In its final stage, the progression becomes almost geometric, and it is this final stage that we are rapidly approaching. Another aspect of this GE line implant is that the body becomes in effect a sort of trap that kicks in heavily on the being should he attempt to expand his horizons beyond that of pure physical universe reality. There can be temporary keyouts, which we have all experienced in varying degrees, but until this area is handled, it can honestly be said that there is no hope for continued expansion. The good news is that once this is run out, expansion becomes rather effortless and almost automatic. No doubt you are familiar with the Revelation section of the Bible where various events are predicted. Also mentioned is a brief period of time in which an arch enemy of Christ, referred to as the Antichrist, will reign and his opinions will have sway. All this makes for very fantastic, entertaining reading, but there is truth in it. This Antichrist represents the forces of Lucifer, literally the light bearers or light bringer. Lucifer being a mythical representation of the forces of enlightenment, the Galactic Confederacy. My mission could be said to fulfill the biblical promise represented by this brief Antichrist period. During this period, there is a fleeting opportunity for the whole scenario to be effectively derailed, which would make it impossible for the mass Markabian landing, Second Coming, to take place. The Second Coming is designed, among other things, to trigger a rapid series of destructive events. With the exception of the original Buddhism, virtually all religions of any consequence on this planet, mono and pantheistic alike, have been instruments to speed the progress of this evolution of consciousness and bring about the eventual enslavement of mankind. As you know, Siddhartha Gautama never claimed to be anything more than a man. Having caught onto this operation, he postulated his own return as Maitreya, part of which prophecy will have been fulfilled upon the passing of L. Ron Hubbard. For those of you whose Christian toes I may have stepped on, let me take the opportunity to disabuse you of some lovely myths. For instance, the historic Jesus was not nearly the sainted figure he has been made out to be. In addition to being a lover of young boys and men, he was given to uncontrollable bursts of temper and hatred that belied the general message of love, understanding, and other typical macabre PR. You have only to look at the history his teachings inspired to see where it all inevitably leads. It is historic fact, and yet man still clings to the ideal, so deep and insidious is the biologic implanting. It is a good joke that the Galactic Confederacy is associated with the serpent in the garden, the beast and other emissaries of the Prince of Darkness. Yet in certain passages and esoteric interpretations of the Bible, much of which has been taken out and effectively suppressed for centuries, as well as the Kabbalah, the truth reveals itself quite nicely for the clever and the ungullible. So it really is a race against time, and one that we happen to be losing at the moment, as the implant drama inexorably plays itself out in spite of the breakneck pace I've managed to keep up these last 35 years. I had an inkling, but only that, of the insidiousness of this material as far back as 1945. Later, in characteristic over-optimism, I thought that R6 would be the end of it, but that was followed by knots and the purification rundown, and still the string continued to unwind with the ball at the end of it just out of sight. It makes one wonder about such things as fate and destiny. Such was the resolve with which I managed to cling to that string, not often knowing how close I was to falling into the abyss myself. But destiny is merely the rationalization of feeble minds. Things don't just happen, they are caused, and causative beings can undo the plans of madmen and would-be enslavers, no matter how long those plans may have been in the making. I will soon leave this world, only to return and complete my mission with another identity. Although I long to stretch my arms back in repose on some distant star in some distant galaxy, it appears that is one dream that will have to wait. But my return depends on people like you doing these materials thoroughly and completely, so that there will be a genetically uncontaminated body for me to pick up and resume where I left off. A body free of religious mania, right-wrong dichotomy, and synthetic karma. The job ahead is far too tough to even contemplate doing with your standard courtesy of certain other dimensional players and their macabre pieces, many of whom are right here in the general populace, genetically altered body. Without the biogenetic meddling of those who stand outside time, who cannot yet directly influence our world and must work through others, the dwindling spiral is not nearly as automatic and self-perpetuating as it appears. There are regions, even in isolated parts of the Milky Way, where poets are free to poet and magicians can paint reality with their magic wands and exteriorize without body kickback. But these areas, unfortunately, are fewer and fewer. I will return not as a religious leader, but a political one. That happens to be the requisite beingness for the task at hand. I will not be known to most of you, my activities misunderstood by many, yet along with your constant effort in the Theta Band, I will effectively postpone and then halt a series of events designed to make happy slaves of us all. So there you have it. The secret that I have kept close to my chest all these years. Now you too are part of this secret, and I no longer have to shoulder the burden alone or live with the possibility of body death before all the data could be released. And with this briefing, I trust to each of you the responsibility for this material until such a time as I am able to return. For we have no help from any other quarter in this matter. The handful of secret societies throughout history that have caught onto this game have long since fallen by the wayside or been taken over and become instruments of the very menace they were set up to combat. The rundown is long and can be arduous, but must be done thoroughly if there is to be any effect not only on the body of the pre-OT, but the body of his or her progeny as well. There is some danger, but with OT7 thoroughly complete, it is not nearly as great as the danger witnessed by assorted unfortunates who happen to stumble into this area in their sleep or in moments of reverie or anaton, experiencing an hitherto mysterious phenomenon known as spontaneous combustion. Caution: do not be PTS while traversing this third and final wall of fire. But the area is well charted, the rundown many years in secret development, and by the time you read this, undoubtedly completed on myself. The winds awaiting you are like none that you have ever experienced, not just for you, but for your children, your children's children, and the whole of mankind. If we succeed, and we will win. If we had time, we should pity the many poor souls from 1950 to present time who chose such an exactly inopportune moment to drop off the road to truth and disconnect from reality. The full burst and glory of OT practically within their grasp, but we haven't the time to wax philosophic or ponder might have beens. The rundown follows. Again I say, do it thoroughly and completely, for this is your ticket to the stars and beyond. L. Ron Hubbard, founder. Wow. All right. Very, very interesting. Very deep. That's something you could spend a very long time on in the course room, isn't it? You know, when people study Scientology and they read the KSW, you know, for some 21-year-old from the suburbs of Melbourne, you hit that and you're like, whoa, because it's just so much stuff you don't understand. Now I can read and understand it. This is like a whole new level. This is like, whoa, trying to understand this. Well, I think I have an idea of what he's actually trying to communicate in this, and I'm going to break it down and say what I think he's trying to communicate, because he's covering such deep things about Earth and stuff. I probably should mention this before I read that out. The church denied that this was written by Ron Hubbard. Well, there were some dramas with the court case, but basically the church released this student briefing only for a month. So they released OT8 in 1988 on the ship. They released OT8 possibly as L. Ron Hubbard intended with this briefing, because we don't know if they actually released the right tech or whatever, because L. Ron Hubbard wasn't around and the church is corrupted. But it's such a controversial document that they just got rid of it. David Miscavige David Miscavige didn't want to release this document in the first place, but secondly, after he did see the problems that he thought it would cause, he pulled it out, because David Miscavige is more of an admin guy and is not necessarily a lover of philosophy and truth and the real secrets of the universe, which I am. And that's why I absolutely love this, because this gives you some serious data and helps you understand the world and life and stuff. This is deep stuff, and this is what L. Ron Hubbard wanted for people on OT8. And he thought people on OT8 would be ready for hearing this sort of information, but people aren't. People are dumber and crappier than what I used to think. I mean, now I know what people are like, but L. Ron Hubbard had more hope for people. He thought at OT8 they'll be able to handle hearing some of these outrageous things and not get upset, and they would just hear them and then research them like I did. But other people, they you know, and also, in my opinion, Scientology only really half works, so it doesn't really create this amazing OT. So by the time they get up to OT8, they're not really this amazing OT. So no wonder why they can't handle the data, you know. if you got a bit of a person who's like a bit of a dummy, then they would have improved from Scientology, but they're still a bit of a dummy. You can't, it's DNA that actually creates geniuses and stuff like that. And if someone's got shit DNA, then they're going to get to OT8, they're going to go, oh my God, what's this? Anyway, and Hubbard knows this as well. He shares two ideas. That he shares the idea that it's all about the spirit and DNA is bullshit, and then at the same time, and he just said in this document, DNA is important. And so he also has like white supremacist ideas and stuff like that, which he talks about in the South African briefing. So he shares both the ideas in classic doublethink, and it's just wacky, Hubbard. But anyway, so with this briefing, I'll start reading it out now. So by the time you read this, I will no longer be occupying the body and identity that you have known as Ron. See how I'm saying this is him, this is his like death message, you know what I mean? And it's only going to OT8s. People who are lower on the bridge aren't getting his death letter or whatever. That identity continues to live in the hearts and minds of many, as well as in on-source tech and admin centers around the planet, and will inspire for years to come Scientologists and lovers of truth everywhere. Hubbard likes to mention on-source a lot because he knows how people like to change the tech and how shifty things are on planet Earth. So really, that's why he wrote the KSW, which caused more problems than good. But he really didn't want people putting other materials in there. What follows is a story that has been withheld for reasons which will soon be obvious until such time as there were enough OTs that something could be done about it. That time is now. It is not a nice or a pretty story, but I trust that having arrived on the OT8 course, you are ready to hear it. So Hubbard's aware that this is going to rock the boat. this information is going to say. You have undoubtedly heard pieces of data over the years that hinted at the greater untold reality of my mission here on Earth. But the story was never written nor spoken in its entirety due to security problems that have unfortunately always plagued the organization. That makes me think that Hubbard didn't want to give the full information about what he thought and his mission and stuff like that, because it would cause too much dramas for security, and the rumors would get out there and it might cause him PR problems and stuff like that. He knows what he's going to say is really outrageous. It is only now that I feel it's safe to release the information, although the time is rapidly approaching when I'll have no choice in the matter. The hour draws that near. So he's saying, I'm writing this now in 1980 because right about that time he knew his health was going bad and he might die soon. So he was like, I better write this now. He has no choice, he has to do it. I'm not going to delve too deeply into specifics, as people have a tendency to bog themselves down in significance, which will only serve to delay the immediacy of the task at hand. Therefore, I will be brief. I really don't like that. This information that Hubbard's saying in this briefing, he needed to do a lecture series fully elaborating on it, because people do not know enough information. Scientologists do not know enough information about the world, life, Christianity, Freemasonry, Satanism, all this stuff. They don't know enough about it to understand it. And Hubbard, he gives his Scientologists too much credit for them. A lot of them have just been shoving up their ass Scientology for years and years, just so much Scientology. They've just been pumping it in there. They don't even have enough time to read L. Ron Hubbard's fiction books, let alone, which he's got some cool sci-fi fiction books, let alone data out there. And they've also been brainwashed that other tech doesn't work. You shouldn't do Rosicrucianism, you shouldn't do Freemasonry, you shouldn't do other stuff. So they've been dumbed down. So Hubbard has contributed to Scientologists being dumbed down by just giving them one thingo, his Scientology stuff. So of course they're going to struggle to understand this. This document here is something that a top level Freemason is more likely to understand. A person in the Illuminati is more likely to understand this than a Scientologist is likely to understand it. That's why some Scientologists freaked out when they got this on the ship, and some of them I think might have even killed themselves, or they wanted to kill themselves. Like this upset them. This sent them PTS because they were just so rattled by the information. Anyway, so he shouldn't have been brief. He really needed to do an elaboration on this. Some 80 odd million years ago Earth time, it actually dates to 78 million blah blah blah, but the dates are superfluous with this material. Plans were drawn up by a group outside the Mess universe for the eventual takeover of a good portion of this universe. Okay, you hear that? I know that sounds really out there, but you have to understand that there's us here on Earth, and there's different countries, and they fight to take over territory. Well, there's other planets, and then aliens fight with other planets to take over territory and stuff like that. And then there's beings, or you could say the word aliens, and they can go between universes and stuff, because there's multiple universes. And what do? They fight between territories. There's different levels of life form. Us is here, but there's beings that are above that, gods and stuff like that. No, above us is aliens, and then gods are above that, right? And as above, so below as above. We war for territories, like what's going on in Ukraine and stuff. These people at the top war for territories, and they infiltrate universes and stuff like that, and it's just how things are. In fact, our neck of the woods is very warlike amongst, because I've looked a lot into the alien topic. It's very warlike. It's very, there's a lot of shit that's gone down. Like you got the asteroid belt, which is a former planet that was blown up in like a war amongst aliens. It's just how things are, you know. You even got like gorillas that get together in gangs and go out and have wars with other gorillas, and they kill each other. And you got ants that go out and have wars, and it's just how it is. So I know people are like, oh my god, what the hell, the eventual takeover the Mess universe. It sounds so like whoa, but that's a normal sentence to me. Like that's just like, yeah, they're beings that are trying to infiltrate this universe. And evil things that we see here on Earth possibly have the source, and this is what Hubbard's saying in this document, possibly have the source of these evil beings that are infiltrating, right? Like the Lord of the Rings example, Sauron is controlling those black horsemen, right, that are riding around trying to kill people and stuff. And then those, what are they called, orcs, or those ugly things that grow up and they start running out and trying to kill humans in the Lord of the Rings. That's coming from the other dimension, coming from Sauron, that circle ring thing in the Lord of the Rings movie. You got to watch the Lord of the Rings movie. You won't understand this briefing unless you watch Lord of the Rings. So the source of evil on Earth is coming from these beings outside this universe that are trying to infiltrate, and that's why they're fucking everything up. Now, you have to understand that Earth is like, and what Hubbard's actually saying is he's saying the universe we're in basically is all kind of like Earth. He's trying to say like this whole universe is a battleground because they're trying to invade and it's corrupting it all up. You have to understand, let's look at the example of Ukraine. Ukraine's a shit, degraded, corrupted country that has lots of foreign interest in it, and Russia's had about enough of it. They were building like biological weapons and stuff like that. It's a very sort of corrupted country, and it's like a battleground. It got blown up a lot in World War II, and now it's just getting blown up again, and it's just turmoil and suffering. That's what our whole universe is like. It's just one big battleground. It's one big Iraq. It's one big Afghanistan. It's one big Ukraine, right? Because of these warring parties and stuff. And when you've got two sides that are warring each other, they've got to war somewhere. And it's in Ukraine at the moment. And both sides don't want it on their good territory. They try and keep it off their good territory, and they keep it in these crappy areas like Vietnam, and then we got Ukraine. So basically, Earth, and it seems like the whole universe. I'm sure there's pockets that are nice, but like this universe we're in, it's a big battleground because it's a big war that's going on. These beings are trying to infiltrate, and they're corrupting things and stuffing things up. That's what Hubbard's talking about. Now, sorry, I've got the glasses on because the lights from the camera shine straight in, and now it's stuffing me up. I should turn the light down a bit, actually. Not a particularly large nor imaginative crew, their exterior perspective, however, gives them considerable advantage over the time-bound beings of the messed universe. Now, he's saying because they're outside the messed universe, they're outside of time, so that's a big advantage, right? Because we're stuck in this linear time stream, but they've mastered time and they're outside that, and they can look in and then plan their takeover of this universe. One thing he doesn't mention, and this is what I want to say because I've looked into a lot of alien stuff, there are aliens out there and beings or gods out there that are actually good, that are trying to stop the evil and trying to stop the corruption and stuff like that. And Hubbard doesn't mention that, maybe doesn't know much about it, but when you read this, you get the impression that the only way out of it is with Scientology and if we do it right. And he doesn't tell you the truth. Like, I don't think he knows it, but anyway, there are other good guys out there that are working to stop this infiltration and this corruption of evil, basically. There are literally beings, angelic beings that are out there flying around in UFOs and who have secret bases on Venus and one of the asteroids and stuff hollowed out. We've got this. Jupiter, I think. Anyway, they're out there and they're fighting these other guys, and they're outside of time and space as well, and they're trying to negotiate, like, because they're trying to do this big battle. It's this huge war in this universe. And anyway, it's not just L. Ron Hubbard and his tech that are here to stop this corruption. Okay, there are other beings out there that are dedicated. They've got like a secret base in Venus. I think it's in the clouds of Venus or underground in Venus. And they've chosen such a tough place to live because it gets a lot of protection, because no one goes there, because if you go there it's too hot and you die. So that's where they keep their secret base, and they're in communication with people here on Earth, and they're pulling strings behind the scenes, and they're trying to stop evil and stuff. So anyway, it's not that drastic, but Hubbard always gives you the bad information because it makes you want to donate more and do Scientology harder than if you say, hey, there are other beings out there that are helping us, you know. And also, actually, he pretty much is saying that, because it's in this document he talks about the Galactic Confederacy, and he's basically saying he's from the Galactic Confederacy. And anyway, the Galactic Confederacy are working to stop this infiltration and this evilness. Anyway, so borrowing from earlier operations such as Halotrobus, they conceived an ongoing implant, some portions of which have been faithfully rendered in parts of the Bible. This implant, laid in by carefully controlled genetic mutation at incident 2 of OT3 and periodically reinforced by controlled historic events since then, makes it effectively impossible for beings on the more heavily affected planets such as Earth to become free. It causes progressive genetic evolution that gives the subject population greater and greater susceptibility to the telepathic impingement and direction of the controllers. In its final stage, the progression becomes almost geometric, and it is this final stage that we are rapidly approaching. Wow. It's just so deep. I don't even know how to summarize that. Like, I know what he's saying. Okay. Right there is his first dig at Christianity. We have to go into what is Christianity. It appears that Christianity, from my research, is a thought control system originated from reptilian aliens. Yeah, pretty much. And Judaism and Islam, they're all one religion. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they're all one religion, but they just split off. They're offshoots. They also started with I think it started with Judaism, and then Christianity split off, and then Islam split off. Because we've got aliens out there that are seeking to control populations, just like Russia's seeking to control Ukraine, just like America's seeking to control Ukraine. As above, so below. The same thing occurs. Aliens do the same shit. Okay, they try and control people. And what do our governments do? Our governments brainwash and lie to us and manipulate us. What do you think alien governments do? The same shit. They brainwash, they lie, and they manipulate populations. It's just what they do. So it appears that Christianity is like an implant, where it's designed to control people's minds. And what he's talking about here is that these aliens who are trying to invade this universe created this implant, right? And the implant is controlling people's minds. It's all about behavior control. That's the whole point of an implant, to behavior control someone. But in case you're not wondering how an implant works, is you take someone, you do something to them, and then after that they're like, whoa, and they're mind control victims. Like, I think the person who shot Ronald Reagan, right? He was like a mind controlled assassin. They took a dude, did shit to him, technology and stuff, and then after that he was like a robot where you could say certain things to him and then he would run off automatically and go and try and shoot someone, right? Because that, in case you don't know, that technology exists. Now I don't know if everyone can get, well actually I think that with low level technology not everyone can be made to go and shoot someone, but when you bring aliens into it, they're millions of years advanced. They have excellent ways of implanting people. So they can take probably anyone, and then after implanting them, you click a finger, and then that person will run and try and shoot a president or something like that. And then after that, not even be able to remember that they even did that. So anyway, that's how sort of implanting works. So these beings who were trying to invade our universe obviously have the technique of implanting, because that's what all governments and militaries invent, because they want to control people's behavior to forward their own agendas. And they might be a good group that are trying to save a planet or something like that, and they might need to do certain things, but it all depends how far you're willing to go. But anyway, it's how many eggs are you willing to break to make the omelet. But anyway, so these beings invented this implant, and the contents of this implant, some of that contents is in Christianity and in the Bible. Okay? So that's obviously him saying, whoa, hold on a second. He didn't say this line, but we could summarize from what we just heard. You could say the line, Christianity is coming from these bad guys and it's seeking to control your mind, basically. Christianity is bad, basically, is what we can get from this. And what they did is they came up with this genetic way of implanting people. So it's an implant that changes your DNA, right? So imagine that guy who we mind programmed to become a shooter. You take him and imagine if you had some way of recording his DNA, and after the implanting, a DNA scientist could look at it and go, wow, his DNA has actually changed. Wow. That's kind of that's what Hubbard's saying they invented, right? And by the way, this whole thing, all the ideas he's talking about in this whole thing, I'm not even sure I fully believe it. But I'm saying it is believable and it makes sense. Because it does appear that in our universe, something like the Lord of the Rings story, which is the same sort of thing that Hubbard's saying, it does sort of appear that something like that's going on. And like I said, of course, different groups are trying to infiltrate different universes and stuff. It's just how life is. So that's why it's like I believe in it, but I don't fully believe in it, if you know what I mean, okay? So don't think I've read this, fact-checked it, think it's totally actual fact. No, like I disagree with certain bits of it, but I'm just saying it's very interesting, it's very educational. So what happens is that you get this implant which has some ideas that are in the Bible and stuff, and your DNA is changed so that you are stuck in your body. So the theory is we are all spirits, right? And the spirit goes into the body, and this implant makes you stay in your body so that if you try and leave your body, which was the whole point of Scientology and what Hubbard was trying to achieve, if you leave your body, you get a kickback where you suddenly come back. And basically, Hubbard is saying that these beings who are trying to infiltrate this universe are changing the bodies in this universe so that the body traps the spirit better. Okay? And this doesn't surprise me that much, because whenever I heard about the exterior idea and stuff like that, I thought, well, there are a lot of people who are not going exterior, and I thought that these bodies are designed to not let people go exterior. Like, it kind of didn't surprise me. I was like, because I thought, yeah, if I was an alien, and because the theory in Scientology was, you know, the aliens or whatever created the body and then trapped us in here, and I kind of thought, well, why would they make a body that allows people to leave it? Like, if they can make a body that like, they could tweak the DNA so that the body doesn't have psychic abilities, the spirit cannot leave the body is dumb as well, is really dumb, so then the body could never invent technology to try and leave, the spirit could never invent technology to try and leave the body. Do you see what I mean? Like, I kind of thought, like, it's like, yeah, no, duh, Hubbard. I mean, that's why I haven't really ever gone exterior. That's why heaps of other people don't go exterior. It just sometimes happens as an odd thing, and people are like, whoa, and it's really interesting. But it's like, of course, if they're going to trap us in a body, I mean, how do you trap someone in a body? You have to put in a way for someone to not leave that body. I mean, what a retarded... Because Scientology always talked about people being trapped in bodies. And now Hubbard's saying in OT8, in 1980, oh yeah, you're trapped in the body and the aliens made it so that you can't leave your body. And it's like, duh. I mean, that's why we're doing Scientology, so we can leave the body. But obviously we've been trapped in it. Because if we weren't trapped in it, then why would we be trying to get out of it? Like, it's just... This is just another funny thing with Hubbard. Like, he's just stating a blatantly obvious thing, right? But he's just saying, I guess he's saying, I found out more about the implant that traps you into a body. And also, I don't think that there's any evidence of people who do this OT8 can leave their body. I don't think he came up with a way to solve the problem of people leaving their bodies. But anyway. So there's another thing he mentions in this thing that I just read. It's the telepathic impingement and direction of the controllers. So They really should be called invaders or whatever. So another element to this implant is, besides changing the DNA, look at my body right now, change the DNA of this body so that the spirit can't leave, right? Which I totally believe, because I mean, duh. I mean, how many people can exteriorize? We're clearly trapped in our bodies. He's just stating such a blatantly obvious thing. It's like, I mean, it's like, of course the body's a trap. We've always known it's a trap. But anyway, so you look at this body, right? But they've tweaked the DNA so that this body has a telepathic communication line to the controllers. Now, do you know how some people feel like they're in communication with God and stuff like that? What if the God is just the controllers? What if it's these evil beings that are trying to infiltrate this universe, right? What if these beings who are outside this universe are trying to take over minds in this universe to do this infiltration, right? That's what seems to be going on. And my understanding of what the telepathic controlling is that the person might, they'll be a normal human like me, sort of, and they look totally normal, but you don't know that they've had this implant that's changed their DNA. So this DNA has an invisible wireless communication line, a telepathic communication line, to these beings that are in the other universe. So this being, what does this being become? A puppet. What does this being do? It does the agenda of the beings from the other universe, right? Of course. Isn't that a great way? I mean, if you want to invade a country, you start taking over the minds of people in that country, and then you get it all prepped and ready, and then when you actually go for the invasion, their armies collapse and their town mayors give in straight away, and then voila, you have a whole country that you've invaded, because beforehand you took over the minds of key people, and just any people, really. So what Hubbard's saying is, this implant, this mind control thing that was invented, besides making it so that you can't leave your body, they also, the beings are trying to trap people in bodies in this universe and trying to control this universe. They're also taking over the minds of those individuals who have gotten this implant and using those individuals as pawns in like a chess game to achieve their goals. People right now might be thinking of someone like Hillary Clinton, Biden. I do feel like here on Earth, people are very strange. Like, not everyone. There are people who are cool. Many people are cool, but there are people out there who do appear like they're under some sort of mind control, like they're just so retarded, and they come to such wrong conclusions, and they always forward wrong agendas. Like, you can just tell if a war breaks out, they would end up spewing out misinformation about the war and just supporting the wrong side, and you know that if the government releases a new vaccine, they'll end up supporting it, saying just bullshit about it, and it's like, screwy, what the hell's going on, right? Leftist, basically, he's describing here the leftist minds, pretty much. He's describing lefties here. They just come to wrong conclusions. They appear to be puppets of some force of evil. Anyway, so I'll continue reading. Another aspect of this GE line implant is that the body becomes, in effect, a sort of trap that kicks in heavily on the being should he attempt to expand his horizons beyond that of pure physical universe reality. There can be temporary key outs which we have all experienced in varying degrees. But until this area is handled, it can honestly be said that there is no hope for continued expansion. The good news is that once this is run out, expansion becomes rather effortless and almost automatic. So he's saying once this implant is run out, you'll be able to leave your body, and it seems that he was also saying you won't be under telepathic control by the force of evil. So it's basically saying, Scientologists, get in now and fucking audit this shit out of this, audit it, whatever this is, audit it, so that then we'll be free from this evil take over our universe, and we'll defeat these beings, these gods from another dimension. There's no evidence that that seems to be the case, but anyway. No doubt you are familiar with the Revelation section of the Bible, where various events are predicted. Also mentioned is a brief period of time in which an archenemy of Christ, referred to as the Antichrist, will reign and his opinions will have sway. All this makes for very fantastic, entertaining reading, but there is truth in it. This Antichrist represents the forces of Lucifer, literally the light bearers or light bringer. Lucifer being a mythical representation of the forces of enlightenment, the Galactic Confederacy. My mission could be said to fulfill the biblical promise represented by this brief Antichrist period. Okay, so that's where he drops the big bomb, where he starts talking about basically top Illuminati and Freemasonry information. Most people don't know about this. People are knowing a lot more now because of the internet. The internet's really waking people up because they're finding out about conspiracies. They're getting to hear about what Freemasons really believe and stuff like that. They're looking into stuff like Lucifer. Back in the 80s, I mean, whoa, this is really deep information. This is really high level stuff. What's going on is that Lucifer means light. The forces of light. And he's saying that Lucifer is the Galactic Confederacy, and the Galactic Confederacy are basically good aliens that are trying to fight the force of evil. And they're actually secretly mind controlling people here on Earth, but for a good reason, to try and fight the bad dudes that are mind controlling people. So there's mind controlling going on both sides. I think a classic example would be possibly someone like Alex Jones, who talks about God, but he doesn't appear to go to church. He works on a Sunday. He just mentions Jesus in a way that's like a typical American way, but he doesn't really, the way how he approaches life is, not turn the other cheek. Because what does Jesus say? Or if you get hit, turn the other cheek, or some little bitch statement like that. Alex Jones doesn't follow that. Alex Jones is only really like a half Christian, a casual one. But he talks about God. He's got his own little version of Christianity, which a lot of people have. I wouldn't call him a true believing Christian. Like a proper one. Because of the way that he lives his life. I mean, why would he do shows on Sunday? He's not supposed to work on a Sunday. He does shows every day of the week. And does he talk much about going to actual church? Do you see what I mean? So anyway, that's why I'm not bagging American casual Christian. The only thing I'll bag about Christianity is real believers of Christianity who actually believe the ridiculous philosophies that are incorrect, and who really get into it, and they're loopy and they're brainwashed and they're not progressing in life. If you look at Alex Jones, he believes in knowledge and facts. That's why he calls it an info war. He totally has his own world and universe view and stuff. Anyway, he talks about God. He appears to be someone who is manipulated. I believe I'm one of these people as well. He appears to be manipulated by alien mind control, but the good aliens that are trying to set humanity free and fight the forces of evil. There are numerous other people in the alternative scene that are the same. Heaps of people. Courtney Brown from the remote viewing group Farsight, their whole group is being influenced by aliens. It's all indirectly. It's not like an alien hops down and greets them and gives them paperwork or some shit. But they could be from the Galactic Confederacy. Alex Jones or Courtney Brown could be getting helped by the Galactic Confederacy. And that's what, and when they talk about God, well, when Alex Jones talks about God, he's talking about, he's got his mind controlled telepathic direction going on. It's guiding him. But his ones are good. I don't believe he's getting the bad. I believe the communists are getting the bad guys who are trying to infiltrate this universe. And there are good guys going around like the Galactic Confederacy that are trying to set people free. And they aren't the only good ones. There's another good group called Ashtar Command. And they're another group that are good. There's multiple groups that are trying to pull the strings and trying to fight the forces of evil. And the evil ones appear to be the reptilian aliens, and they pretty much seem to have the territory of Earth under control, and it's their territory, and they're subjecting us to abuse and all this stuff. And these reptilians very much could be under telepathic control by those beings outside this universe that are trying to infiltrate, and they're using the reptilians as puppets to achieve that. Now Hubbard here is saying Lucifer is a galactic confederacy. I don't know about that. From what I've looked into it, Lucifer seemed to have been well, he's saying, let me see. The forces of Lucifer, forces of light. I mean, I agree with that, but also, just on another side note, is that from what I've looked into Lucifer, is there was a being, I think, who was like an alien human that was here on Earth thousands of years ago, and he was Lucifer, and he was, like the Bible said, he did rebel against God's program and wanted to do his own thing. And according to the remote viewing data from Farsight, this Lucifer actually was kind of a bad guy. Like, he was just hell-bent on being a dictator of Earth, basically, and he tries to take over people's minds and stuff like that, and bring them under his control. He was basically like the ultimate Hillary Clinton, basically. So, you know, these remote viewers produce some pretty good information, and so I don't know, it seems pretty accurate. And I think if anyone worships Lucifer too much, they themselves start becoming crazy and start getting taken over by this this Lucifer guy or being or whatever. And it sort of makes sense with Hubbard, because Hubbard was crazy, and Hubbard created chaos amongst his religion and drama and stuff like that, and that's what Lucifer does. Because he's not in harmony with the universe. He's too hell-bent on being dictator of the universe. Because it's like imagine you got a town or a city. Imagine if every individual in that town didn't accept that they weren't dictator of the town. Like, imagine if every being wanted to be dictator of the town. That town would be freaking crazy. How you have a harmonious town is that one person says, okay, all right, I'll flip the burgers, and another person says, okay, all right, I'll build cars, and I won't be dictator of the city. And then we have a harmonious city that functions. But if you add in a few people that are wanting to be dictator of that city, they all fight with each other because they're like, no, I want to be in control, I want to be in control, I want to be in control. And it creates chaos. So that's what Lucifer brings about. And Hubbard's life, so much of that was he was trying to be like, I'm in control, I'm going to cause this to happen, blah, blah, blah. He never was willing to give in to God and just say, okay, all right, I'll calm down, give in to Mother Nature and I'll accept my place. It was like, no, I'm doing blah, 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 blah. He was very hell-bent on that. And that's why his life was chaotic. And that's why Scientologists' lives are problematic, because they're too obsessed with being at cause and they can't take a back seat, you know what I mean? And it causes drama in Scientology, because they're all trying to be dictators they're trying to postulate, come true, and it causes, you have to be, I'm not saying you shouldn't try and achieve things and dream big, but you also have to at the same time accept your position in life, Anyway, so this statement about Hubbard, about Lucifer, it's pretty interesting what he's saying. But here's another dig at the Bible, because he's basically saying that the Antichrist is a good thing, because it's setting people free, and it's the Galactic Confederacy, aliens, and it's good. So it's pretty interesting and deep information. Now, I don't know if I want to read much more, because I'm not really in the mood. Had a big day. So I'll finish this one. This Antichrist represents the forces of Lucifer. I don't know if I read this out, but I'll read it out again. This Antichrist represents the forces of Lucifer, literally the light bearers or light bringer. Lucifer being a mythical representation of the forces of enlightenment, the Galactic Confederacy. My mission could be said to fulfill the biblical promise represented by this brief Antichrist period. So that's where he drops the big bomb. He says he's the Antichrist. Who's the Antichrist? The devil. So Christians have an absolute hernia when they hear that. Oh my God, the devil, the devil, the devil. What they don't understand is that this universe is very corrupt, and it's quite possible that their whole religion is mind controlling them, and that actually the devil's a good thing because it's setting them free. So, that's why you might see Madonna, because Madonna studies the Kabbalah, which Hubbard mentioned in this, and she studies magic and deep spiritual information. And so she might do a little dance with devil stuff in it and satanic stuff. She feels what she is doing is right, and she's helping set humanity free and the stupid Christians free from a mind control system. And conspiracy theorists are like, oh my God, Madonna, look at this, all the people dancing in red and black robes, oh my God, oh. Actually, that's why it's funny. You talk about synchronicity. See this t-shirt, red and black? That's just a synchronicity thing, because it's a topic that I'm talking about in this video. But I didn't intentionally do that. But these sorts of things happen. They're coincidences. They mean something. Look for them in life. Like attracts like. Anyway, so conspiracy theorists would have a hernia about it. Stuff like InfoWars would show a video and it'd be like, oh, Madonna dancing to Satanism, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, Antichrist, them blatantly being evil. And it's interesting, but you have to stop and think and go, what's the other point of view? What do they believe? What does Madonna believe? Why do they think this? Why did Lady Gaga said some statement about wanting to fuck girls, basically, because she's a lezo, and then the host on the TV show goes, oh dear God, and then Lady Gaga quickly turns and goes like this and covers one eye and turns like that. So she's indicating her religion, which is like Luciferian or whatever, and because he said, oh dear God, and she's going, because she's defending herself against God. You can watch the video on YouTube. She doesn't. She covers the one eye. These celebrities and stuff, they believe in Satanism and stuff like that. What they're basically, what Lady Gaga is basically saying is, I'm a lezo. I can do what the fuck I want, and I don't want to be at effect of this evil alien control system of God, basically. And so people like Lady Madonna, Lady Gaga and Madonna, they're not really evil. They believe what they're doing is right and that they need to get rid of Christianity in order to set humanity free. Because Christianity is dumbing down humanity and it's an alien enslavement control system. And she's broken free of that, doing her religion, which is probably like Illuminati and Freemasonry and stuff. She's broken free from that mind control system. And that's why so many famous people actually are into this sort of stuff. So it makes sense because Hubbard was a famous person and he's into it as well. It just makes total sense because he's worked out that she's clever enough to work out the truth about Earth and what's actually going on and with their religions and stuff like that. So don't get all like freaked out when you see these celebrities that have these unusual religious beliefs. They mean well, basically. I mean, I disagree with Lady Gaga and the homosexuality and stuff like that. And like this comment that she said, but I get her belief system and I agree with it as well. I mean, I didn't get anything from Christianity. You know, I was brought up in the casual Christian thing, and I got nothing from it. In fact, only in the past few years when I've studied it a lot, looked into the theories of it, become friends with someone who's a real believing Christian, I just realized that it's just terrible. I mean, honestly, it's terrible. Like, it's okay to be a casual one, you know, but not actually not a proper believing one, because I do believe it's destructive. I think it's completely irrational. I think it's just a ridiculous religion, to be blatantly honest. It's so unscientific. It's so backward. I mean, if you talk to a believing Christian and you talk about the truth to me is what's actually occurring. It's facts. It's science. To them, the truth is Jesus. That's the truth. Jesus set us free. And so you can have a conversation with them and they'll go, yeah, and I'll say something like, it's the truth. And they'll go, yeah, it's the truth. And they're using a different definition of what the truth is. To them, the truth is Jesus. Like, it's just wonkers. It's so screwy a philosophy. It's just like, it's so backwards. It's such a backwards, primitive, retarded religion. It's shocking, really. If you want to find out more about Christianity, you've got to read Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code. The whole thing, because it's brilliant, but just there's a particular section where he gives a whole summary of how Christianity was created and just the truth of Christianity. It was created like the way McDonald's was created. It was ridiculous. Like, the Romans came in and they go, oh, well, let's take this from this pagan religion, let's put that in there, and let's say that it was Easter, and let's say that this was Christmas Day, and blah, blah. And it's just ridiculous. Like, just think about the theory, right? God needed to send somebody really good, his perfect child, to Earth. The humans had to kill that child, and then that sets the humans free from their sins. But if God's all powerful and controlling, why didn't God just click his fingers and set people free from sins? Why did they have to have a blood sacrifice? And it's just so retarded. There's a story called there's a Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it's like some kid's story, but they base this kid's story on the Bible story of Christianity. And you watch this Narnia story, and it's just a really crappy, retarded storyline. It's like someone came up with it when they were high on fucking weed or something. It's like, what a retarded storyline. Like, it's like made up by like a retarded weed smoking 15-year-old in their parents' basement or something like that. It's like something that they would say as a joke, and then you go, oh, this is actually a Christian story, it's based on Christianity, and you're like, oh, and like, The people who wrote that Narnia story were Christians, and you see it, the whole story, they have like a lion, and the lion gets sacrificed, and it's like Jesus, and it's based on the Jesus story. It's just ridiculous. It's a terrible story. It's not like where you watch Lord of the Rings and you're like, that's an intelligent, interesting story that makes logical sense. It's like you watch this story and you're like, this is just ridiculous. It's illogical. It doesn't make sense. It's just retarded. That's the Christian story. It's based on Christianity. So you look at it and you're like, it's not really any good. It doesn't bring you any closer to God. It's actually illogical, and it sends you backwards. I got much closer to God doing all these other things, and that's what Madonna and Lady Gaga believe in. They believe in they can get closer to God, the real God, and they can get more advancement by going against Christianity. And so that's why they want to try and fight Christianity, and that is Hubbard's viewpoint, and that's what Hubbard created Scientology for. Because he was, not only did he believe in the Antichrist, he thinks he was the Antichrist. He thinks he was this force in order to bring it down Christianity. You have to understand, he was around the 50s, 60s, 70s when society was way more Christian. He was trying to bring people out of that. And that's what Crowley was into as well. Crowley was trying to get rid of that effect on people, because Christianity was making people, oh, I'll do sins all the time, I'm going to commit sins, oh my God, and they're all worried about committing sins. And it, well, some Christians, the casual ones were cool, but the believing ones were the ones who were real worried, oh my God, blah, 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 and they're just all, I don't know, they have to pray all the time and stuff like that, instead of actually advancing themselves so then their thoughts can create reality. They're busy praying to God. And you know, if you get a proper Christian, you're not looking at somebody who's that advanced, that really knows about aliens, that really knows about other beings, that really knows about God, because they're going to church and singing songs. They're suppressed and they're controlled, and they're just, you know. Anyway, so I didn't get that much benefit from Christianity. And I agree with their point of view. It's not that I want to get rid of Christianity, but I probably do, to be honest, because I think it's ridiculous. But I want instantly for it to be replaced by a good religion that's, you know, that'll give people spiritual advancement and stuff like that. But anyway, there's so much to what these people believe in. But this is a big bomb to drop, to say that you believe that you're the Antichrist, pretty much. That's shocking to people. Imagine if you were a Christian and you worked your way up to OT8 and you read that and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, that would really shock you. So anyway, during this period, there is a fleeting opportunity for the whole scenario to be effectively derailed, which would make it impossible for the mass Markabian landing, Second Coming, to take place. The Second Coming is designed, among other things, to trigger a rapid series of destructive events. So he's saying the Second Coming, which a lot of people refer to as when Christ is coming back, when Jesus is coming back. That's just when the Markabian aliens are coming back and they're going to take over Earth, basically. So he's saying Jesus was like a Markabian alien dude. And these Markabian aliens are controlled by the beings from the other dimension. Do you see what I mean? Because they've got the bodies of the Markabian alien has the body with the tampering DNA. So they're under telepathic control. Their gods are evil. My God, which is probably Galactic Confederacy, is good. You see what I mean? It's a war of the gods. You see? That's why some people natively, if you get them more and more connected with God, they're not going to come to the same conclusion. If they're one of these evil ones, if they've got bad DNA, basically, they're going to believe more and more in the 1984 police states. somebody who's got a good God like me, you advance them and you get them more and more in connection with God, and they are more and more into freedom and good stuff. These are the out there theories. So I got to finish off this briefing because I'm going to have to go to another part. So we're only at the start of that student briefing, but do you see how much elaboration needed to go on with each thing that Hubbard said to try and understand what the hell he's trying to communicate? I'm happy because I actually feel like I get what he's saying, because I remember when I first read this, I was like, man, will I ever understand this document? Like, this is so hard to understand. And I just managed to piece it together from heaps and heaps of research. I don't think any other Scientologist out there or former Scientologist really could actually understand this document for what it's trying to say. There might be one or two out there, but I don't mean to brag. But like I said, what did I do? I chose as a job where I could listen to shit, and I'm also pretty switched on and smart. But I wasn't listening to pop music. You have to listen to tons and tons of books. You have to listen to books about black magic, about cursing. You got to listen to things about this, about that, and watch all this stuff, and then you can start piecing it together. People don't have the time for that. Okay, I did it. I had the time for that because it's a job I chose, right? And it's just awesome, and I'm happy I did that. I was getting paid to listen to stuff that I wanted to do anyway, you know. Still sort of am. So I believe I'm special and I've cracked a code, and this is my meaning of my life, because other people have other meanings for life. This is my meaning of life, is to sort through tons of information and then to put it out there on the internet so people can hear it, and that's how we bring about the awakening, you know, and that's how we help humanity, and that's how we stop the force of evil. So anyway, this is going to take a while. Obviously, I've got a few more briefings to go until I get through this whole document, but I'm enjoying this because I'm learning by talking about it, and I think about it, and I'm happy to read it again because I've read it heaps of times, and it's so deep, and it gets you thinking about things and stuff. But anyway, that's it. I've been Andy Nolch. This is the Indie Scientology podcast. Thanks for listening. So remember, what you thought was impossible is possible. Goodbye.